Hey there, my friend, and welcome back to Bounce Back Black Woman. Today's episode is the arrival at the final pillar in this mini-series, and it is on resilience. And honestly, I don't think it's a coincidence that we saved this one for last, because resilience isn't where the journey begins. Resilience is what emerges because of the journey we've been on. Over the last few episodes, you know that we've talked about time and the importance of understanding how little time we actually have. Awareness. We've talked about connection, compassion, and courage. Each of them building upon the last and preparing us for the next. Each one helping us become just a little stronger, a little wiser, a little more intentional. And today I want to talk about what all of those things ultimately create together. And that is resilience. Not the version of resilience that social media talks about all the time. Not the version that tells you to simply be strong and get over it, but real, authentic resilience. Lasting resilience. The kind that helps you keep going when life gets really tough. Because, my friend, take it from me, life will get really tough. The question isn't whether or not challenges are going to come. The question is, who will you become when they do? I think one of the biggest misconceptions about resilience is that resilient people don't struggle. We look at people who've survived difficult things and we think, oh, she's so strong. She's so resilient. I could never do that. But here's what we often forget. Resilient people cry. Resilient people doubt, and sometimes doubt themselves. Resilient people get discouraged. Resilient people get tired. And resilient people definitely have moments where they want to quit. They're human. The difference isn't the absence of struggle in their lives. The difference is their willingness to continue moving through it. And another misconception, that resilience means bouncing back. And yes, this entire podcast is centered around bouncing back. But the older I get, the more I realize something. Bouncing back doesn't mean that we return to who we were before. Before the hurt, before the loss, before the whatever, fill in the blank. And maybe we're not supposed to, because every experience changes us. Every loss changes us. Every challenge changes us. Every difficult season and every successful season changes us. The goal isn't to go backward. The goal is to move forward, carrying the wisdom we've learned through all of the things. One of the most important truths that I've learned is this. Resilience isn't something that you're simply born with. It's something that you build, brick by brick, wall by wall. Nobody arrives in the world knowing how to navigate heartbreak, or grief, or disappointment, or betrayal, or failure, or loss. We learn, we adapt, we grow. And unfortunately, most of the growth happens through experience, through challenges, and through seasons that we never asked for. Friend, trust me, I wish there were an easier way. But many of the things that make us resilient are forged in the very circumstances that we would have preferred to avoid in life. And yet somehow we survive. And then we learn. And then we grow. And eventually we realize I'm stronger than I thought. Not because life got easier, but because I became wiser. As I was reflecting on this series, something became very clear to me. Resilience doesn't exist in isolation. It is built on, with, and through other things. It's built on awareness, the ability to see ourselves honestly. It's built on connection, the ability to understand and be understood by others. It's built on compassion, the ability to care without abandoning ourselves. And it's built on courage, the willingness to move before we see certainty. Think about that. Without awareness, we repeat the same patterns over and over again. Without connection, we isolate ourselves into a life that we were never meant to live alone. Without compassion, we become hardened or depleted and abandon the qualities that God placed in each and every one of us. And without courage, we remain stuck behind fear of moving forward and fear of failure. But when those four things begin to work together, begin to meld into our inner being, something powerful emerges. And that something is resilience. Not because life stopped being hard, but because we've developed the internal resources in order to navigate it. The truth is that resilience isn't always dramatic. You don't wear like this big banner on your forehead that says, I'm resilient. Sometimes resilience simply looks like getting out of bed when you'd rather hide under the covers. Sometimes resilience looks like making the difficult phone call that you've been avoiding, or going to therapy, or setting the boundary, or trying again, or applying for the job, or taking the walk, or praying just one more prayer. Sometimes resilience is quiet. Sometimes resilience is invisible to everyone else. And sometimes resilience is simply refusing to give up on yourself. And honestly, I think many women underestimate how resilient they really already are, because they're focused on what they lost instead of what it is that they survived. Look at your life. I mean, really look. You've survived things that once felt impossible. You've carried burdens that you didn't think that you could bear. You've rebuilt after disappointments, and you've adapted after changes. You've kept moving forward, and that matters, my friend. That is what really matters. One of the most beautiful things about resilience is that it changes us, and not always in the ways that we immediately recognize, but it still changes us. You become more discerning, more intentional, more compassionate, more courageous, more aware, and more grounded. Not because you asked for hardship or wanted hardship, but because hardship taught you things that comfort never could. And while I would never wish many of my hardest seasons on anyone, I can also, at the same time, acknowledge that they shaped me, they strengthened me, and they revealed things about myself that I wouldn't have discovered otherwise. And that's the paradox of resilience. The things that challenge us often become the things that transform us. One of my favorite scriptures about resilience comes from Romans 5:3-4. We can rejoice, too, when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. And endurance develops strength of character, and character strengthens our confident hope of salvation. Notice the progression in that. Trials, endurance, character, hope. You see, the struggle wasn't the destination. The struggle was part of the process. And that's often true in all of our lives as well. Resilience can feel exhausting because growth often happens at the same time that we're grieving. We're learning and hurting. We're growing and grieving. We're healing and remembering. Moving forward and letting go all at the same time. And that is why resilience isn't always glamorous. It's messy. It's emotional. It's imperfect. But it is powerful because every step forward becomes the evidence that you're capable of more than you ever realized. So today, my friend, I want you to ask yourself this question. How has my resilience been built over the years? And then ask this. What strength, wisdom, or growth have I gained from seasons that I once thought would break me? Because resilience isn't something that you either have or you don't have. It's something that you build. One choice, one lesson, one season at a time. And so, my friend, as we close this series, I want you to remember something. Resilience isn't magic. It's not luck. It's not perfection. And it's not reserved for a special group of people who are deserving of it. Resilience is what happens when we learn to see clearly, connect deeply, love wisely, and act courageously, again and again and again. Resilience is what happens when awareness, connection, compassion, and courage begin working together. And over time, those things transform us, not back into who we were, but into who it is that we are becoming. I want you to remember always that it's not just you, and it's not just me. It's us together. And I'll see you in the next episode, my friend.